Welcome everyone to So You're Telling Me I'm a Part of My Research Agenda, Self-Awareness and Multicultural Research. Our objectives for this presentation is we will be exploring conceptual and theoretical frameworks that translates into multicultural research practices. We will be enhancing philosophical application into a multicultural research agenda. And last but not least, talk a little bit about practical solutions for incorporating self awareness into your research agenda. My name is Dr. Kalesha Jenkins. I am an adjunct professor at the University of Cincinnati. I specialize in multiculturalism and social justice. I provide clinical services to underserved individuals in the greater Cincinnati area. And last but not least, my research agenda focuses on self awareness and multicultural competency development. We will be talking a little bit about the importance of conceptual and theoretical frameworks. We will be talking about paradigms versus conceptual versus theoretical frameworks. We will be building a multicultural research agenda through its design, and last but not least, incorporating self into that multicultural research agenda. So, first and foremost, let's talk about some really high level concepts that anytime that you take any research course, you'll be hearing about these things, such as your philosophical paradigm. Now, this, especially for this slide, there is a lot that goes into it. And it takes some time and some energy to sit and think about how we believe that these concepts filter into what we're doing. Now, with our philosophical paradigm, it is usually broken down into four different main constructs, which is the axiology, ontology, epistemology, and methodology. And all these are summed up through how we believe and how we perceive research should be conducted. And so, if you think about multicultural research, we're talking about how you believe that multicultural research should be conducted, such as within its axiology, what do you think that should be valued? What are the certain ethics that we should be upheld? And so, if you think about that, it's really taking into account what you believe and how you see those things, especially our values and ethics that should be upheld within the research. Within our ontology, we're talking about what really exists. So, what things, what concepts, what people, what whatever the thing is, what really exists in the world, and what is the reality of that. And so, when you're thinking about reality, what is concrete? What are the things that are there within the world that we don't necessarily talk about? What are the things that exist that may not necessarily be talked about on a normal day to day? Here again, talking about these high level, very philosophical things that can be masked, but they're there. These are the things that we believe, these are the things that we perceive. And so we need to really be critical within ourselves and really kind of defining them so that we're being able to translate it to the work that we're doing. Within our epistemology, what is the relationship between the knower and what is going to be known? And so, how you take you into how what you're doing and how that translates into what is necessary to be exposed or what is going to be known about whatever the thing that you're exploring. And last but not least, how do you think that methodology should be conducted? What are that systematic way that you're going to be able to construct the knowledge? Because that's what research is. It is a construction of knowledge. And so, if you think about all this is a lot of times building off of the things that we believe the world is supposed to be working. And so, if I had to give a little um, Hence, for someone, I would say, take some time to journal about it. Take some time to ask ourselves or ask yourself, what do you think you value? What do you think research should be done? And not really looking at a specific way, but really just asking yourself these high level questions and seeing what you come up with, because it can really give a greater understanding about how you think that your research is going to be portrayed within the world. I found this picture online, and I did not find the author of this framework, but I think it is very, very important because it really talks a lot about and it breaks down our conceptual and theoretical frameworks. Now, with the conceptual framework, it is constructed by what we believe. As we are going back to that philosophical paradigm, usually, sometimes conceptual frameworks and philosophical paradigms are usually used interchangeably. Now, for the sake of not going down a rabbit hole, I think that there are a little bit has some differences, but to say that with our conceptual framework is really about how you are shaping your research. What do you think is really important about your research? What is it that you think is the underlying principles within your research and being able to stand on it? And so, if you're thinking about building your research or building your research design, you're really talking about what is it that you think is behind the the research that you're doing. What is important about it? Um, how would you contribute to the new knowledge? And so that builds into that theoretical framework. What theories do you think will help you shape the study? What things do you think will help you design and ground your study in things that are very practical? Now, here again, this takes a lot of different exploration, being able to get a great understanding or a good understanding of what the literature already says. Now, most people, doing a literature review doesn't necessarily always equate to coming up with the things that you think you're going to find, but it does give you a good foundation about what is out there, what has already been said, and it can help you be able to point, because sometimes we have to, depending on our research agenda or what we're exploring, we may our our question may necessarily go against what is already out there. So having a good theoretical framework, we can make a tentative plan about how we're defining what is going on and how that evolves through our research. Last but not least is talking about various different theories. What theories will help you be able to make a relationship between the concepts that you would be studying and how you understand the world, because there are a lot out there, especially within multiculturalism and diversity. There's a lot of different types of theories, and in a few slides you will see that there are a lot of different frameworks that you could possibly build off of that will help you really enhance your research design. And all of these are interconnected, and it all comes down to what is it that you believe and how you perceive research should be portrayed. How do you think that your research needs to be designed so that you can build off and help the next generation? So, why is this really important? Well, for one, in practical terms, it helps us better explain our research. It helps us better explain what is going on in the world. When we have a strong foundation about all these different concepts, when we think about our conceptual frameworks and our theoretical frameworks, it helps us better explain what we believe and what we perceive is going on. And so when you have a strong foundation, it helps you position your beliefs about your research and how it should be done. It helps you give a greater foundation because it's a lot out there, and particularly within multicultural research, because we're usually inter- interweaving a lot of different concepts into our practices to be able to get to the answer that we're trying to explore. we have to have some type of foundation in that principle. We have to be able to ground ourselves in something rather than just picking and choosing what methods that we think will be fascinating that will point us to the direction that we want to go. And so it helps us be able to build a systematic way of constructing or deconstructing our reality. And I'll talk a little bit about why I say constructing and deconstructing reality, because there are some frameworks, such as critical, where it is a deconstruction of reality. It's helping pretty much um, untether a lot of things that are underneath the surface. And so really depends on how do you see or what do you think is really important that you want to be studying. And so as you build your research agenda, your conceptual and theoretical frameworks is helping you ground yourself into this is how I position what I believe about my research. This is what I think is going to be important for the next generation. In this slide, you will see that there are a lot of different frameworks. Now, this is just a few that I could possibly pull up because it would be sheets upon sheets about different types of research designs that will help be able to explore multicultural research. And so you have critical race, feminism, Black feminism, transformative, post-colonial, decolonization, indigenous, there, and it goes on. And all of these frameworks, if we go back to the last two slides, is really building off of what do you think is important? What do you think is going to help you ground your research and your research design that will help explore that question that you're posing to the world, the things that you think is important in it. And so your framework is helping you being able to define those things, is helping you being able to explore that research agenda in a way that is foundational. And so you don't have to go and make it up. You're not making up anything. You're using a systematic approach so that you're able to explore something that is far beyond what you will be talking about. So, how does this incorporate into your research agenda and research design? Well, first, your underpinnings, your philosophical paradigm is going to help you be able to identify what is important to you. And if you go back to any type of research course, we talk about positivism versus post positivism, and all those types of different concepts. Constructivism is another one. And sometimes, at least when I was taking those types of courses, it some of them just didn't sit well with me. And I took note of that. I took note that positivism, where I felt like wasn't really explaining exactly what I thought, what I needed. And so I had to look for other different paradigms or other different approaches that would help me better support what I thought was important. Because if it's not important to you, or the different things that they're talking about, usually it doesn't align with what you're really looking for within your research design. How do you believe that that reality is going to be constructed? And here again, these are questions that take a little bit of thought. It's taking a little bit into account what you think and believe and perceive how that research is going to help you being able to define those types of constructs. How do you think that the current concerns in the world are connected with your life? Here again is taking that inner connection between what's going on outside of you and what's going on within your research. Your conceptual framework can go by asking a few different questions, such as how do you visualize what's going on with your topic? How do you visualize what's going on deep rooted in the different areas that you will be talking about and discussing? Did someone else already do some research in that some in a on a similar topic? Because that can give you some foundational um, preliminary understandings of how does someone else visualize how this research is going to be done. And it can help you point to the direction that you think may explore what you are trying to define. How did they conceptualize that concern? Do they talk about it very broadly, or were there very concrete definitions? Because it can help you be able to define what those concepts you might be looking for within your research. Your theoretical framework is, again, those types of theories. So, what theories will help you explain your topic? What theories may help being able to define all the things that you're looking for? Your methodology is really looking at what things are you going to be pinpointing that would help you better support your research design. And last but not least, what methods may help explore your research questions? And there are a lot of them out there, and it takes a little bit of digging. So you're connecting what you believe and how you see the world is supposed to be working and research should be working with all the different things that have already been done. So let's talk a little bit about incorporating who you are into your research agenda. Multiculturalism embraces diversity and diverse approaches. And so, who you are and what you are is part of what is going to resonate in your research. When we're talking about multiculturalism, we're embracing all the differences. We're embracing all the different things that is that we don't necessarily always get a chance to talk about. And so at least I believe that they're interconnected. Who you are, if you're embracing the multicultural agenda, you're looking at all that you believe is going to be important in your research and who you are is incorporated into that. Multicultural research also takes being innovative yet being responsible because research is very powerful. It can give voice to a lot of different things that don't necessarily always get voice to. And so when you are looking at things in a different way that may not necessarily been talked about, being very concrete and constructive about how you want to explain that, being very responsible about the practices that you're utilizing to be able to give voice to that research or to that individual or to whatever the concept it is. You're grounding yourself in your research. And a lot of the times you will see, particularly within qualitative research, there are positionality statements. We're saying that who we are is not out outside of our research, that a qualitative researcher is embracing all of who they are in their research. And so their conceptual frameworks and their theoretical frameworks is part of themselves. Their self is not outside and is not tandem to their research. It's a part of the research and being able to embrace that because we are part of our research. We are part of the things and how we perceive is going to be talked about. Understanding that research is an extension of how you believe that the research should be conducted. And so, how you understand your research, how you understand all the concepts that I'm talking about in this presentation is what your research is all about. And so, sometimes we have to go back to looking at who we are, who we think that the world is, or looking at objectivity versus subjectivity. Does these things exist? Do we think that quantitative research is better than qualitative research, or do we need to do mixed methods or something in between? And how we think that the methods are going to be utilized. What do we think that these things are important? What parts of these things are important? Because this is who you are. Your research is a part of you. And especially when I was doing my own research and when I do my research, it can become really almost like a part of me. It becomes pretty concrete in my life, and I start seeing things through the agenda of what I'm talking about. A lot of my work looks at self awareness. So I see a lot of things through a self-awareness lens. And anyone that does a lot of research will tell you the same thing, that it becomes so close to home that it's hard to start to separate a lot of that. And you got to take breaks throughout the research so that you're able to decompress what you're looking at. And last but not least, finding ways to be creative, finding ways to be able to give you and your research its voice. And what I mean by that is really looking at how, in a lot of different ways, of how people have conducted research. I'm very fascinated by looking at the forefathers and how they looked at research. I think that there are a lot of different types of research out there. Anthropology, if you look at a little bit in anthropology in this research, it's a lot of cases. However, they use very interesting ways to explore voice. Um, Ethnography, which looks a whole deep into any type of construct and really diving into it and almost becoming one into it. And I think those things are very fascinating because it can give a lot of foundation to what we're talking about. So, who we are is not outside of our research, it's a part of our research. And if I had to give any type of tidbit into this presentation, I would say is not thinking about self as a so outlandishly outside of what we're talking about, but utilizing who you are and incorporating that into a place that it is part of what you're talking about. And that's talking from a quantitative and a qualitative or mixed method approach. It doesn't necessarily have to be so far out there or you taking yourself out of the research, because there are a lot of different ways that we can incorporate who we are and what we believe into our research, especially when we're being responsible with the topics we're talking about. So here are some implications that I have for this presentation is your multicultural research design and agenda starts with you. Who you are is part of your research. And when we embrace that, it's not outside of what we're talking about. It becomes a parallel process, and we don't have to hide what we believe. We just embrace it all and move forward with it. Don't be afraid to explore your understandings of how you perceive research should be conducted. And at least what I believe in a little bit within my research that I have conducted is that when you take who you are, it helps you be able to define a lot more about how you think things are. So when you look into yourself, it helps us be able to define things outside of ourselves because we have a foundation in ourselves about what we think is important and how those things may connect, or if they don't connect in lighter terms. And last but not least, exploring various multicultural frameworks, exploring a few that is on the previous slides, and really looking into them. What do they talk about? How can that help you be able to explain your question? How would it help you be able to incorporate some of those practices into your own designs? Here are a few resources and also the references. And I greatly appreciate you tuning into this presentation. and I look forward to talking to you further about the topic. Have a great day. Bye.